Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Let's take a look at the West African sub-region, and in particular, the summit that was held. And on Sunday, as you now know from the news, the West African heads of state on Sunday, they officially recognized the junta, the 15-member bloc at least. When I say recognized, we'll be hearing from our expert and diplomat in the studio, Ambassador M.K. Ibrahim, who was our ambassador to Libya. He also has served as a chairman of the OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries, independent human rights organization, a widely experienced ambassador. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you for coming on our program.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Indeed, it is our pleasure. So as I was saying, I was not speaking as a diplomat when I said that on Sunday, the 15-member bloc officially recognized the junta in Niger. But I said that because at least they are now talking in terms of, it needs to be said that the bloc did say that the sanctions, against the coup in Libya would remain, even as they now work out a sort of a different transition program, a much shorter one than proposed by the junta leaders, who had said that maybe a 3-year transition period. They propose a much shorter one. And so really, maybe this is the time to sort of get your expert understanding on what exactly has happened now. President Bazoum, people say that because of the extent to which the summit has gone, is not likely to be returning as the president, as was originally demanded by Ecowas.
Implicitly, I don't know whether this answers your question, but implicitly, we are becoming more pragmatic. The chances of President Bazoum coming back as being restored as the president of Niger is very, very slim at the moment. And that's why we are talking about a short transition program. And that's why this a committee of heads of states will be traveling to engage the CNSP, that's the government in Niger, to discuss the modality of these transition programs in terms of the period of time, in terms of monitoring the transition and program monitoring and evaluation, and the putting of the necessary mechanism to ensure that the roadmap of the transition program is adhered to without difficulties, to ensure that within a very short period, probably not more than 6 months, there will be free and fair election in Niger, and the discussion will now go in, we will reveal the details, whether who every Nigerian will have the opportunity, including Bazoum, to participate in the next election. Highly unlikely, but then it depends on the details of the discussions in the roadmap. We are waiting to see what will happen. But if you are following the development, this meeting ended on Sunday, but as early as yesterday, the government of CNSP has already indicated that there will be no discussion whatsoever on the release of President Bazoum and his family. That condition for negotiation is unacceptable, to them. So, yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you what, sir. Please continue if there was any more. Please continue. I'm sorry to have interrupted.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying that there is a lot of intransigence from the government in Niamey, from the junta in Niamey. They did not even have the courtesy of allowing the presidential committee that was set up by Ecowas to go and meet them and discuss the detail of the transition program, because this is the first opportunity that is available for discussion. It's not just Niger, but at this summit, the avenue for discussion, further discussions with Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea has also been opened. So ECOWAS is trying to engage with all the 4 military juntas, in the sub-region. The others have not declined, but Niger, the approach is unfortunately different. For me, it is very, very disappointing because this is the 5th coup in Niger, but this one seemed to be the most difficult to handle. The last coup in 2010, I happened to be in the delegation that traveled to Niamey to discuss the transition program. And there was no hostility towards the delegation as we are seeing now. The junta at that time received the delegation, and within a short time, discussion on the transition program was on. The coup took place in February 2010, but within a year, by February 2011, there was already free and fair election. The same General Abdul Salami was the mediator. I traveled with General Abdul Salami to Niger, and the response was completely different. The head of state then, General Jibo Salu, gave General Abdul Salam a full military salute. And the moment he did that, we knew their request would be granted because ECOWAS wanted only 6 months for them. And they were able to sit with us and explain the difficulties and why they were pleading with ECOWAS to give them up to 1 year. And it wasn't difficult. Yeah. Nigeria did everything. And at that time, coincidentally, the chairman of ECOWAS was the Nigerian president, Goodluck Jonathan. Just like we have the ECOWAS chairman now, the Nigerian president, Bola Tinubu. But this one is completely different. There is so much intransigence.
Okay.
If we are following...
I beg your pardon. ECOWAS, as you say, under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, did, talk tough, having a zero tolerance for coups. So it was, ECOWAS was on an uncompromising stance to the whole situation, saying that, look, the days of coups have passed and that democracy was indeed the new order. But on Sunday, Omar Aliyu Toure, president of the regional bloc of ECOWAS, addressing the press, had said that what has happened now, it seems that you were just saying that realization has dawned. What has happened in Niger is a coup, and the CNSP that you spoke about earlier, the National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, is indeed a military administration in Niger. So that much has been admitted now, and I can understand when you're saying that, well, these are pretty different times. Before we continue, sir, we have a report that we put out, just in case anybody missed out on the report when it first went out. Let's give this sort of bird's eye view of where we are.
After about 3 hours closed-door meeting The Ecowas Authority of Heads of State and Government have finally reached a decision on matters perceived important to consolidating democracy and good governance in the region. The meeting highlights how the disturbing trend of coup and coup attempt in the region has posed a great threat to its sustainability.
The authority rejects all forms of alliances that seek to divide the region and promote foreign interests in the region.
The president of the Ecowas Commission, who read the communique contained some of the decisions of the authority, says it is extending the mandate of its mission in Gambia and Guinea-Bissau to ensure stability. It also took a decision on Liberia's election and Sierra Leone's crisis.
The authority further decides to extend the mandate of the Ecowas Stabilization Support Mission in Guinea-Bissau. On Sierra Leone, the authority strongly condemns the attempted coup d'etat of 26 November 2023. It further directs the Commission to facilitate the deployment of an ECOWAS security mission to Sierra Leone to help stabilize this country.
On the fight against terrorism and security issues, the authority instructs the Commission to urgently review efforts to activate the ECOWAS standby force to counter terrorism.
Instructs the Commission to expedite the convening of the meeting of Ministers of Finance and Defense to agree on the modalities for the mobilization of internal financial, human, and material resources on a mandatory basis to support the deployment of the regional counterterrorism force.
The authority wants an immediate and unconditional release of President Bazoum of Niger and has to this effect set up a committee of heads of state of Togo, Benin, and Sierra Leone
to engage with CNSP and other stakeholders with a view to agreeing on a short transition roadmap, establishing transition organs, as well as facilitating the setting up of a transition monitoring and evaluation mechanism towards the speedy restoration of constitutional order.
Outcome of the engagement with the committee, according to the authority, will determine if the sanctions on Niger will be eased. If not, the authority insists on upholding all sanctions, including the use of force. As the session closes, the decision of the Authority of Heads of State and Government is for the Committee on Peace and Transition Talk to start work immediately in meeting with the military administrators, but a time frame was not given for when this is to be concluded. Moya Thomas, TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, so there you have it. And if you're just joining us, our guest is Ambassador M.K. Ibrahim, a former ambassador of Nigeria to Libya, and he's helping us to understand. And you did say earlier, sir, that the one thing that is clear is that, well, ECOWAS has gotten more pragmatic. At least it's gone as far as acknowledging that what happened was a coup. It didn't recognize it before. But force still has not been taken off the table, you know, in the midst of all that pragmatism. It's like ECOWAS is still being stern about the matter. But let's talk a bit about that, this pragmatism. Clearly, the junta in Libya, in Niger, I beg your pardon, the junta in Niger is also, you know, apparently standing its grounds. There's no word. It's like they were silent on President Bazoum, which was a major condition of ECOWAS, the release of the man safely, the president. He wasn't even referred to one way or the other. Such is the nature of diplomacies. They were silent on him, yet he's in there. It's very much like the elephant in the room. Where is this going to lead? This matter of who's going to blink first that we seem to be encountering now.
I think they made their position clear yesterday, and coming from no other person than the president of the CNSP, General Chiani. He said under no condition will his government release President Bazoum. He repeated it. He said because that's the only guarantee they have that they are not going to be attacked. They are so frightened of being attacked by the ECOWAS standby force. In fact, even the mention in this communique, of a standby force for terrorism, to them is another way of saying we are preparing for you. He has made it clear that they are not under any condition. And that's why I said there is so much intransigence in the junta. They should have allowed this presidential committee to come and meet them and discuss this quietly. Details of what had been agreed in the summit will be relayed to them. If they have any particular concern, they will relay it, to the committee. But less than 24 hours after this communique, he came out with this very strong statement trying to get popularity with his people, that Bazoum will remain with them. In fact, their foreign minister went even further by citing instances in Nigeria, how General Buhari was arrested and detained for 17 months, how this person was detained. But this was before the Ecowas Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance. These were events that happened between 1984 and 1998. But since the year 2000, and in particular, since the adoption of the Protocol on Democracy and Good Government, having realized that we must do everything possible to reduce the amount of coups and the detention of legitimately elected heads of states. That was why this protocol was adopted. So for Niger to be referring to those ugly days for which the protocol was made to put behind is deliberately, and it was unfortunate. That is one. And there are so many action taken by this government that do not show any sign of compromise or willingness, goodwill, to discuss with Ecowas. You are aware, of the Alliance Sahel. They took this decision without even getting the consent of their own people in a form of referendum or even discussing it seriously. Just mere visit to Mali, and then off we go. Now we're having an alliance. They are taking of union. They are taking of even monetary policy without the consent of anybody. And President, the chairman of Ecowas, had made that clear that it was just a phantom dream. Ecowas will not allow that to happen. There is even an action that I will feel probably is even more irresponsible, if I can use that word. They have repealed their immigration law on the 25th of November, allowing people to crisscross Niger, especially those crossing the desert to Europe, to smuggle, human trafficking, carry drugs, and transitional criminal activities. They have done that because the city of Zindar, that was the last city before the journey into the desert, their economy was based on this illegal movement of and human trafficking. The European Union and the AU intervened. There was a discussion and agreement on migration to stop this. There was heavy penalty, including fine of up to 40,000 euro and imprisonment of 30 years for anybody caught perpetrating this act. But on the 25th of November, this government, the CNS, unilaterally repealed that law, which means they will allow all kinds of transnational criminal activity, drugs, trafficking, human trafficking, trafficking in arms. And there was a swift reaction from Libya and Italy because of the implication of that. I was surprised this did not even come up in the summit because it's a very, very serious action, including for us, Nigeria, because that will be open the floodgate, for light arms or small, weapons to come into our country. That action was really unbecoming of an Ecowas member state, because Niger is still a member of Ecowas, is still a member of the AU, and that action should not be taken lightly. It's not an action of a responsible government. There are so many things that are coming up now in Niger that, as I said, this is the fifth coup. All the previous coups did not end up that way. They did not affect our bilateral relations, and they did not constitute so much a problem, to ECOWAS. Even Mali and Burkina Faso and Guinea did not constitute so much problem. They were ready to sign an MOU for transition to constitutional authority within
even, I beg your pardon, Ambassador, as you mentioned Mali and Burkina Faso, Omar Aliou Touré, the president of the regional bloc, he did inform that even these countries have stopped their collaboration with the bloc on transitions to their country's civilian rule. So all of this is looking like ECOWAS, its work has been complicated with this.
No, I think in the case of Burkina Faso, Guinea, and Mali, in February this year, they wrote a letter to the ECOWAS asking to be allowed to asking for some kind of understanding of the difficulties they are having in implementing the MOU they signed for the transition program. They are still willing. Even President Jonathan had indicated his disappointment in a manner, with the manner in which the ECOWAS stopped the negotiation. What happened was when they asked for more understanding, asking probably for more time because they could not fulfill all the requirements in the MOU. Unfortunately, instead of getting a listening ear from the ECOWAS, further sanction of travel ban was imposed, on them. And what was their response? They said, well, if you are putting travel ban on our leaders, then we are also putting travel ban of all the mediators, ECOWAS mediators, coming to discuss with us. This deadlock was unnecessary. In fact, it was unfortunate. But thank God, the summit realized that, to move forward, we have to remove this ban, which has now been removed. And that would allow the continuation, the resumption, of discussion with these three, countries. And hopefully, President Jonathan will go back now to his role as the mediator for Mali, having made enormous progress before this unfortunate incident. So this is one of the achievements, to me, of this summit. It will open the window for discussion with the three other countries. And on the side of Niger, now this presidential committee will go and meet them to discuss the MAU, the roadmap, the transition program, and all the mechanisms to be put in place. But unfortunately, as I told you, just yesterday, the president announced that they are not going to discuss the issue of releasing President Bazoum. The ball is in their court, and now they have responded to Ecowas. So we are waiting to see what will happen.
Indeed. What do you think this does for the notion, and it's a modern notion, it's a global notion, that coups, are not favored anymore in this political dispensation, this global political dispensation. That's what,
sure.
Yes, that's what ECOWAS tried to, put flatly on the table, draw a line in the sand, so to speak. But with the intransigence that you are speaking about, should any country still have elements within it minded to be using this device? That was the very idea that was sought to be stamped out. What do you think this does for the sub-region now?
Let me tell you, between 2012 and 2022, for a period of almost 10 years, there was no coup in West Africa. And that was the time, in terms of the economic indices, the GDP growth rate, the inflation rate, and all the development indices went very high. Growth rate, average growth rate, then was about 6%. But from 2022, when coup started, the growth rate fell to about 3-point-something%. Niger, before the coup, its growth rate was about 6%, one of the highest in the Sahel. Public debt declined. Within this period of 10 years, that there's no coup. To show you that coup only sets countries back, the coup countries and the whole sub-region. We cannot continue like that. And if ECOWAS is not firm, then there will be so much problem that this region will be the least developed in the whole world. You can see now there are 4 countries. Fortunately, 2 other countries, there were attempted coups in Sierra Leone and Guinea-Bissau. If that had succeeded, then we'll be talking about 6 countries in this sub-region that are under military regime, almost half. And you can imagine how this will impact on our growth rate, how this will impact, on the way of the objective of economic cooperation and development in ECOWAS. You can't have this. President Buhari was so much in love with improving our bilateral relations with Niger, to the extent that we wanted to extend the railway line from Kano to Maradi in Niger Republic. This was how close our relation with Niger was, or is, or it should be, But you can imagine if this had gone on, and now with the closure of border, with all these belligerents, with even the threat of leaving ECOWAS, as at today, the debate in Niger is whether they should leave ECOWAS or not. And the junta is deliberately, putting this, inciting people. They have broken with France. They have asked the French, to leave. Fine, that is their own bilateral decision. But after that, there's nothing again.
And they do seem to have they do seem to have the public's popular support, whether or not the public understands or is aware of the issues.
Last week, there was an attempt by Bazoum supporters to go on peaceful protest. And they were warned with letters with the threat that they will take drastic action against them. The police, the military took over all the streets in Niamey. That didn't happen. And most of the ministers of Bazoum. Those who have escaped, but those who are in Niger, they are all in detention. And that's why I'm telling you that there is no goodwill whatsoever from this government towards the restoration of democratic or constitutional governance, or even having serious bilateral discussions with Nigeria.